You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. It is myself, Mooncey, and alongside with the general manager extraordinaire, live on location today, Mr. Scott Perry. How you doing, brother?
Oh man, I'm doing fantastic, Mo. Came up, caught a little NBA basketball last night, watched the Cavaliers play at the Orlando Magic, and Cavaliers showed me why they are at the top of the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, they are
Mm-hmm.
they are really playing some great basketball.
We're gonna get right into that. First, I want to start talking about the Magic, who had such a
Mhm.
great start to the season. They've dropped down to seventh in the Eastern Conference now. They've had a tough stretch of injuries. Paolo was out, Franz was out, Mo Wagner's out for the season. Jonathan Isaac is always injured. But I want to talk about the Magic first and foremost. I can see the
Mhm.
Orlando sunshine beaming through your window.
Yes.
What are you thinking with the Magic? Because there's a lot of discourse right now online about Paolo Banchero, and a lot of people are looking at kind of the on-off numbers and the splits and saying he's actually a negative to his team. However, when you watch the games, the kind of baskets that they're relying on him to make, it's a lot of self-creation, it's a lot of tough shot taking, tough shot making at times.
Mhm.
But what are your thoughts on the Magic and the direction that they need to be headed in? Because we had so many great things to say to them earlier in the season, and now they've
Mhm.
kind of fallen off a little bit as they've got healthier.
Well, let's not forget, Mo. Like you said, they had a tremendous start to the season, and then the injury bug really started to hit. Paulo first went down and was out for a good month and a half, almost 2 months. And then when he comes back, Franz Wagner goes down. And so when you take those two and then add in Jalen Suggs, who's out now, I believe that, and that's their core three players. Going into last night, they had played 6 games together. And so what you're seeing now is a team that's searching to gain a rhythm. And so that includes Paulo as an individual player. I saw that in Franz Wagner last night. Guys that are searching to kind of find their games and rhythm. And you made a tremendous point because teams are really loading up against Paulo. And I watched him last night, and a lot of the baskets he scored, they were tough shots. And you can't make a living, as you know, in this league on having to rely on tough shot making night in and night out to win. I'm not giving up on this Magic team. And talking to some of the people here associated with the Magic, and one of the things that I had mentioned to them, and they echo too. Let's wait until we get to about mid-March, and hopefully this team, by that time, you've got Suggs back. He, Banchero, Wagner are playing together a lot, starting the game gain a rhythm because you want to be playing good basketball that final month of the season, heading into a playoff run. So that's still there. They play a lot of guys, so there's depth, there on this basketball team. So I'm not giving up on them. Yeah, is a concern right now, absolutely. But they really miss Jalen Suggs because he is the heart and soul of this team. He's not the most
Sets the
talented player on
tone.
this team, but he sets the tone. He gives the other guys the belief, such a defensive presence. He's sorely missed right now as well, too. So that's what I saw as I watched him last night. And again, like I said, they ran into a buzzsaw, too, in Cleveland.
Absolutely. So far this season, they're 8 and 21 against teams that are above 500 and 21 and 10 at teams below 500. So they find themselves in that middle of the pack, not quite good enough to beat the elite teams, but much better than some of the worst teams around the NBA. But let's talk about the Cavs. You seem very excited talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They improved to 48 and 10, the best record in the entire NBA. They had what, five guys last night in double-digit scoring. They had Ty Jerome, who you and I briefly mentioned in Monday's episode, but he's been really, really impressive. He's been with a shout for sixth man of the year this year. He's been playing fantastic basketball. But what stands out to you most, and when you look at these teams, because over the years we've seen, for example, the Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors, who were great regular season teams in the Eastern Conference, but they couldn't get it done in the playoffs. What are you seeing from this team that makes you think that they are legit contenders to win the Eastern Conference?
Well, what really stands out, and I was there early for the game and got a chance to talk to a couple of the guys, it's really the confidence and the belief in themselves and what this coaching staff has been able to do with the group. And it really has to start with Donovan Mitchell. Got a chance to speak a little bit with Donovan. Got to meet him during the pre-draft process years ago. Outstanding person as well as player. And you can tell that he has taken on a leadership role with this group, and he's really adopted the understanding that he has to just step back just a little bit to allow the other guys to really grow and score in this offense. And that has really impacted and helped Evan Mobley. There was no Darius Garland last night. To start the game last night, Donovan just really was getting guys involved. Max Strus came out early, was hot, shooting the ball well. They took out Evan Mobley early in the game. It was interesting. And then brought him back with the second unit and then let him go to work with the second unit. So there's just a complete understanding, confidence in the way they play the game. They really share the basketball well on the offensive end, Mo. They do a nice job defensively, not only in man, but they switch some to zone. They really walled up well against Paolo last night. And you can see and tell when a team just has a glow around them, if you will, that they're in a great spot. They know that they're good, but they're not overly cocky though. Because they're still paying attention to the little things, the details. They're taking one game at a time. I just was impressed, and I'm also impressed too, from the coaching standpoint, is that there's some vision there with Kenny Atkinson. He's not, when Orlando made their run in the second half, because they jumped out to a 20-point lead in the first half. Orlando made a run, looked like they were going to make the game a lot closer game. And Kenny stayed with his second unit guys. Matter of fact, went even a player deeper into Porter Jr. And it just shows me, again, the vision from a head coach. And when a head coach doesn't panic and allows his second unit to play through some things, that was very impressive. And I think that's going to bode well for them as they move forward going into playoffs.
Right now, I've got Kenny Atkinson as my coach of the year because
Cannot get that.
they didn't make any changes to the roster. Obviously, they traded for DeAndre Hunter a couple of weeks ago, but aside from that, they didn't make any major changes to the roster. And the improvement, with all due respect to JB, who was there before, but the improvement of adding Kenny Atkinson, and I can't believe it took Kenny Atkinson this long to get another head coaching job after he left Brooklyn. So yeah, it's been great for him. But did you get a chance to actually, before I get to that, 7-game series, Celtics Cavs? How does that go? Yeah,
Bo.
yeah, yeah. Let me not forget. Let me not forget. Call it right
I like
now.
to forget. I tell you what, and I failed to mention him when I was talking about the Cavs. And you brought him up, DeAndre Hunter, and that's still bringing DeAndre off the bench.
Mm.
But you know that he's going to probably be out there playing the Celtics if they were to play the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Final to close out games. And he's fitting in. He's playing with confidence. He gives them another guy who's a big time threat at the three, but also a very quality defender. Boy, that is a real tough one, Mo, to answer right now, because in terms of how they're playing, and I know Boston is playing very well here as of late well, but Cleveland is playing extremely well. I believe the winner of that series is going to be the more physical of the two teams. If I have one question about Cleveland still. Now, Allen and Mobley have been answering that call this year. Mobley has picked up a little weight. He's got stronger, is playing more assertive. Jared Allen is just a consistent pro. They don't have another big still off the bench that I think can play in that bully basketball type of game. Now, the Celtics don't necessarily
You're not
play
a
that well
believer
in
in
front.
Tristan Thompson?
Yeah. And I talked to Tristan before the game. It's unbelievable the career he's had and how long he's been at it. But I don't think that you can rely on Tristan for a great number of minutes. But they may need him in a series like that when things get a little testy and physical, especially on the interior. So if you're asking me sitting here today, I'm still got to give the champs a slight edge because they are the champs. They've been there, done that. But boy, I'm eagerly anticipating that series was I believe those two are on a collision course because we said this the last show. Those two teams are for sure a tier above or 2 tiers above everybody else in the Eastern Conference that are going to be playoff teams.
All I'm saying is, as much as I like DeAndre Hunter, Tatum's
Hmm.
averaging 29 and 6 when he plays against him.
Oh yeah. Oh, and
And
no.
you think Isaac Okoro's the answer? Well, Tatum's averaging 28, 9, and 4 against him. So
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In this league, we see the recipe for success in the playoffs year after year is having these athletic wings that can score the
Yes,
basketball. That's the
absolutely.
one thing the Cavs don't have. You know, Donovan Mitchell is a smaller guard, Darius Garland is a smaller guard, and then they've got Mobley and Allen, who are the two 7-footers there. And I think we're gonna have to see if they can break the mold of teams who win with these, the Tatums of the world, the Kawhis, the LeBrons. So we're gonna have to see if they can break the mold. But speaking of LeBron, all eyes were on the Lakers last night, but not for LeBron James. It was for Luka Doncic, who was making his first appearance against his former team,
Hmm.
the Dallas Mavericks. Luka finished with a triple-double, 19, 15, and 12 in the win for the Los Angeles Lakers, 107 to 99. And I'm not going to lie to you, with Anthony Davis out injured, with Daniel Gafford out injured, with Derek Lively out
Lively out
injured,
injured. Yes.
this game was a lot closer than I would have liked it to have been if I was a Lakers fan.
Hmm.
I saw, I was pretty impressed with what the Mavericks got going. PJ Washington didn't make a basket the whole night, and yet they were still very much in this game right until the end. Klay Thompson
Yes.
had a great shooting night, 5 of 10 from three. Kyrie Irving had to remind everyone he is still Kyrie Irving. He had 35, 7, 4 with 3 steals and 2 blocks locked in on both
Hmm.
ends.
Hmm.
Speaking of that, Luca had 3 steals and 2 blocks as well. He's definitely increased his defensive effort since he's got to the
Hmm.
Lakers.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people are commenting on how he looks in so much better shape now that he's with the Lakers. And I predicted this. I mean, it's just common sense. It's like everyone in the world, after they have a breakup with their partner, they get back in the
Hmm.
gym. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They got to
Hmm.
impress the
And,
new
yeah.
fans. So
And you know what? And he may not be eating as much due to the stress of the trade that has happened too. He may have lost a few pounds due to that too.
yeah, I saw him. He was doing push-ups in the pre-game warm-ups. Like in Dallas before the game, he'd be trying to score from half court. Last night, I seen him doing push-ups before the game got going. So,
Right.
shout out to Luca. He's steady working hard. But yeah, I think if I was in the Western Conference, I'd be a little bit worried if I'm the Lakers that it was that tough to beat the Mavericks without their top three bigs on their roster,
Hmm.
and they're starting Kessler Edwards at center. How are you feeling about this game if you're the Mavericks organization?
Well, there's no such thing as moral victories, first and foremost. Even though you're without your entire front line and very important members to this team, and obviously the other key part to the trade, that being Anthony Davis. If you figure you throw Anthony Davis in there last night, just himself, given the closeness of the game, that tilts the balance to the Dallas Mavericks. But you never know how those things play out. But if you're the Mavericks, what you're looking to do right now in the short term is because they made this trade in part from where I sit due to what they believe is establishing a culture of competing defensively and all those kind of things that were swirling around about after the trade. So from that standpoint, I think you had to be pleased with how the team showed up. That they knew they were undermanned, but they came out and competed. And I got a chance to watch the complete second half by the time I got back to my hotel to watch the game. So I definitely like that. Klay Thompson, again, I think it's going to come up big for this team come playoff time because he's been there, done that, and he can make big shots in clutch moments. And man, Kyrie Irving, man, what a year he is having, and just the leadership that he's exhibiting on a nightly basis. And I thought that showed itself again last night for this team. I've said this before, early on after the trade, after the first couple games, the Max Christie addition is undervalued, underrated, if you will, because he was ascending as a player when he was with the Lakers, and he's continued that in a Mavericks uniform. So um, you're not happy with the loss, but deep inside, you appreciate the competitive spirit of the group. Now you got to just figure out how we're going to at least play close to 500 basketball without our entire front line of Davis, Gafford, and Lively. And if they can play 500 basketball until those guys get back, again, I believe this is a team you got to watch out for in the Western Conference come playoff time because they got experience. They've got guys who've won championships, and they've got a coach in Jason Kidd who's not afraid to make adjustments, tinker with the game a little bit, and put his team in best position to win.
Well, I only really started watching that game properly in the second half as well. I had it on my second screen, but during the first half of that game, I was watching the overtime between the Phoenix Suns and the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis came
Mhm.
away with a 151 to 148 win. For the Phoenix Suns, this puts them in a terrible, terrible position because they're now out of the play-in positions. They're now 11th, two and a
Mm.
half games behind the 10 seed with the highest payroll in the entire NBA. No future draft picks or very limited future draft picks coming in. And, last time was a game where Bol got 31 minutes in the game. He scored 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks. You're getting those kind of contributions with Bol in the starting lineup. But it's another game where Booker, Beal, and Durant combine for over 75 points and they lose. Uh, and it's great that you have these three guys who could score so much. KD had 26, Book had 28, Bill had 24. But with those three guys, defensively in the backcourt, you just don't have enough to win games in the NBA. I think they're tinkering with the lineups now. They're putting Beal in at the starting point guard spot. They had Tyus Jones coming off the bench for just 12 minutes. They're just in an impossible position. For the Grizzlies, it was great to see Ja Morant hit that clutch shot that ultimately gave them the win. He's having a few better performances as of late. We kind of spoke about this. Me and BJ spoke about this on the show. I don't know if you were there, but he struggled a little bit this season. But
Mm-hmm.
for the Phoenix Suns, Scott, what do you do if you're the Phoenix Suns? Because all signs are pointing to Kevin Durant being moved this summer.
Boy, if you're Phoenix Mo and you wake up this morning, you're looking at all kind of negatives. Like you said, they're out of even the play-in. They're sitting in the 11th seed right now. Very bad place to be. On top of that, highest payroll in the league. Worst place to be, and not and when you're not in contention. When you have if you have the highest payroll in the league, your expectation is that you're going to be in the top two or three at worst in your conference,
Winning the
at the very
chip,
worst.
winning
And,
the
yeah,
chip.
and competing for a championship. That's what I'm getting, and that was my next line to that.
My bad, my bad.
So, yeah, no, that's good. No, that's fine. But so you're looking at now, obviously you're still hoping that, okay, we can turn this around in the last, 25 games that may be left. But you have to be really realistic, Mo, and understand, okay, how are we going to tear this thing down and really start over and build this thing up again? Because the way things were handled with Durant at the trade deadline, that did not leave the best of feelings in the room and the environment for Kevin Durant and probably for his teammates as well too, because they respect Kevin. They know what Kevin has done with his career. So for that to have come out during that time, that was not good for team morale or Kevin Durant's morale either. So you're dealing with that. So you got to really be looking now as the season is going on. Okay, who do we try to go after? Kevin Durant is their most attractive trade person or trade chip, if you will, if you're not going to go move on from Devin Booker. What you got to worry about too, though, is Devin Booker's going through all this too as well. Does Devin Booker all of a sudden wake up one day toward the end of the season if things get so bad and say, you know what, this may not be best for me either? I don't think he's got to that place yet. He's come to that place yet, but you never know. So I just you look at a team and an organization right now that has a tremendous amount of work to do in retooling, not re just really reshaping, reforming, changing a lot of how you're going about your business because to this point, let's just be frank, it has not worked. And you got to be honest with yourself that it hasn't worked.
The Suns have not beaten an opponent over 500 since January the 31st. So the whole
Oh,
month of
hmm
February. Since
hmm
then, they're 0-5 against teams over 500 and they're 2-9 overall. And do you want to know the worst part about that, Scott? They have 24 games left,
okay.
and 19 of those games are against teams that are above 500.
Oh,
So you're 2.5 games out of the 10th seed, and now almost all of your games, let's say you win the 5 games against teams that are below 500, you then have
okay.
19 games to beat playoff teams in the NBA.
Mo, and I got to give our guy Bart a shout out and give him a project here. I'd like to find out if there's been a team with the loftiest payroll, the highest payroll in the league, not make even the play-in tournament, if that would happen, is that going to be a first? I can't just, as I sit here, can't think of that situation. Maybe it has happened, but if it has, it is not a regular occurrence, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the only way that would have possibly happened would be if they had a season where everyone was injured for the entire season.
Season, exactly.
That's the only
Yeah.
way that I can,
Hmm.
off the top of my head, I cannot think of a year in which the highest paid team did not even make the playoffs
Playoffs,
or the
yes.
play
You
in at
play,
least.
yeah, right, yeah, because
Like,
you go before the play-in even started, the playoffs, we should say, because we shouldn't even be talking about the play-in tournament with the loftiest payroll, the highest
yeah,
payroll in town league. With that, the play-in shouldn't even be in discussion.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And their payroll for next season as well is second in the league, second
Yes,
to the Boston Celtics, who already have a championship. So
yes.
we're gonna have to do some research. We're gonna have to get in the lab and all of that. But like the worst part is, I'm hearing from a lot of the Phoenix Suns fans that there's a lot of tension even between Booker and Durant, which is not great.
Oh,
The good
wow.
news for you and BJ is Booker is a big Lions fan. He's from Detroit, right? Or he
Yeah,
lived there for a while.
yeah. I believe his dad was originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, if I'm
Yeah.
not
So if
mistaken.
I'm
He
Devin Booker and
spent some time in Michigan. Yeah, Devin did spend some time in Michigan. Yes, he did.
I'm looking at the Detroit Pistons and I'm thinking, well, you guys are on the up and up. They're on a 7 game win streak. They're playing the champs tonight. Cade's establishing him as that point guard there. We've got Tyus Jones coming off the bench, but we don't even have a point guard. The Pistons are winning without Jaden Ivey. If there was a way for me to get myself traded to Detroit, the Suns would be pretty happy with getting someone like Jaden Ivey in return. I think that's something that I'd be looking at. But my question is, if you were the Detroit Pistons, would you trade for a player like Devin Booker, or would you continue to grow this organically?
Like you've heard me say often, Mo, you got to study it. Now, I'm not there to know all the personalities on the Pistons team, and I believe strongly this year you're going to get a chance to see them play in playoff basketball, which is key and important, so that you can make a final determination on such a deal like this, or deciding if you want to go all in to get him based on what your performance looks like in the playoff. But as I sit here and I think about it again, excluding just what I just was said, to think about a backcourt, if you could somehow put together a backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Devin Booker, just think about the size, the shooting, and the playmaking ability amongst between those two guys. The Pistons become extremely formidable in that Eastern Conference. And so that's why I say to you, you've got to study the rest of your journey, evaluate the rest of your journey and what your team looks like in the playoffs. And that usually gives you a very good indication, just, what we're missing, what we're good at, what we're strong at, what the guys on the roster will continue to grow into and get better at, and what we may need to add. And boy, when you talk about a Devin Booker, Cade Cunningham backcourt, that would be a really good backcourt to see in Detroit. And you got to remember, when we're talking about the Detroit Pistons and the great teams of the Detroit Pistons history, you first start with the original Bad Boys, Hall of Fame backcourt, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and the best third guard off the bench in Vinnie Johnson. They won with guards. Fast forward to the group that I work with, the backcourt, Chauncey Billups, who just goes into the Hall of Fame. Rip Hamilton hopefully gets his shot to go into the Hall of Fame. Good size as a backcourt, could both score. And they were drivers of that team. Obviously, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, and the rest of it, and Tayshaun Prince were hugely important. But again, very good guard play. Now to have a backcourt of those two, Cade Cunningham and Devin Booker, Pistons may
Hmm.
be on to something. So
Well,
be
I,
interesting to watch.
I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying
No, I
if it
know.
does happen, remember
Devin,
who told you
yes,
first. You guys
exactly.
listening. We'll give you some.
No, that's why I'm giving credence to that, Mo. That's why I
Yeah.
tell you, it's something that you have to think about if you're them, because they have some flexibility and they're in a position and they have some good young players. And so they have some capital that they can maneuver to maybe get involved in a deal like that. Again, that's, Phoenix may ultimately say absolutely not, and Devin Booker may say, I don't, I want to retire Phoenix Sun. We don't know that.
Hey,
But this,
that's
for
Supermax.
for the sake of the podcast, this was fun talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely, Scott. I appreciate you. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks for making the time whilst you're on your trip over there in Orlando. And Phoenix Suns, if you need some help, Scott and I are both available. So
There you go.
Matt Ishbia, if you're listening, once again, feel free to get in contact. Scotty P, appreciate you. We'll be locked into the Celtics Pistons tonight, the Hoop Genius podcast rivalry game. And
yes, exactly.
it should be a fun one. It should be a fun one. But Scott, appreciate you as always. Safe travels back home. And to you guys listening, make sure you subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. And most importantly, until next time, Scotty P, tell them what it is.
Get buckets.
You know the vibes.